Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Really does help the channel, especially with the way YouTube is at the moment. And let's crack on with today's first story. Holy moly, and much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from Queasy Influence 7711 from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. And it says, would I be the arsehole if I secretly take my grandpa to the doctor, even though my aunt insists she knows better? I, 16 female, have a paternal aunt, 45, who studied pharmacy in university and has always been into alternative medicine. For some reason, my entire family seems to think her degree from decades ago makes her qualified to be the family doctor. I never really questioned it until a few months ago, when we found out she'd been hiding my grandma's breast cancer from the entire family and treating her with a diet. The way we found out was traumatic. My grandma suddenly had weird speech, so we rushed her to ER, only to discover she had 8 brain tumors, one so large it caused internal bleeding. She had emergency surgery, and multiple doctors told us she was essentially beyond help. She had had breast cancer for at least 7 years, and my aunt had been covering it up the entire time. Now, onto my grandpa. His feet had been swollen for years. The doctor my aunt insists he sees prescribed a pill for it, but my aunt refuses to let him take it because she knows better. Recently, they got him compression socks, but ever since he started wearing them, his face has been bloated, and he's been really tired and off. 2 days ago, I told my dad I was going to take my grandpa to a proper doctor, whether anyone liked it or not, and he said, okay. But when I asked my mum which doctor I should take him to, she told me to confirm with my dad because I can't take my grandpa alone. My dad then said to ask my aunt. Of course, my aunt dismissed my concerns and said he's fine. I don't trust her at all. I honestly think my grandpa could be in serious danger if we keep leaving things up to her. My plan is to tell him I'm taking him for a walk and then secretly bring him to a real doctor. I know this would cause huge drama in my family if anyone found out. So, would I be the arsehole if I take him without adult permission or anyone else's knowledge? Edit. I see a lot of people saying this is elder abuse, but both my grandparents are very aware of these decisions and support them fully. My grandma was the one who pressured my aunt into keeping it a secret. The only reason I think I can take my grandpa to a doctor without putting him in a fight is because he's a man of very few words and will probably not say anything if put on the spot, but he would definitely object should I tell him the plan prior. Also, I definitely think the swelling has something to do with his heart because I've heard the adults saying it started right after a stroke multiple times. Opie comes in the same post with a small update saying, my cousin told my aunt that I was worried about grandpa, and she just sent me a 3-minute voice message basically telling me that this is their decision and that everything is okay and to back off. I feel so helpless. That is absolutely terrifying, and I wouldn't trust this aunt with anything medical ever again. We're talking about someone who hid cancer for years and treated it with a diet, which is just absolutely wild. And now you've got your grandpa going through all sorts of stuff, the swelling, the fatigue, the changes in his face, and she's just saying he's fine. That's exactly how this situation escalates again. I can only imagine how frustrating and scary it must be at the same time that the adults around her just let it happen, passing the responsibility around, deferring to her even after everything that's gone on. And it's bloody shocking it's come to OP, a 16-year-old who's the only one actually pushing for proper care. It almost feels like some horror movie level shit, right? A commenter says to OP, not the arsehole, your grandparents are not within their right mind. They are frail, they are scared, and they were being bullied by your aunt. You can call Adult Protective Services and file a complaint. You can give them all the information about your grandmother and her tumors because that is documented. There is so much more you can do than you think. I suggest you don't go to your parents. You can go over their head by calling the hospital where your grandmother was at and where they discovered those tumors in her brain. Ask them for advice. Ask them for any phone numbers of people within the government agencies that you can call to force your grandfather to be seen by a real doctor and not your aunt. OP replies saying the problem is both of them are most definitely in their right mind. They are well aware of the choices they are making. They just don't believe in doctors or medicine, I guess. The commenter says, quoting, when we found out she'd been hiding my grandma's breast cancer from the entire family and treating her with a diet. The commenter then says that's elder abuse. She stood in the way of preventative early treatment and should be held accountable for her deliberate actions. I would argue she convinced your grandma to keep quiet, telling her she knew best. That is part of the abuse. She acted as an authority. Your aunt is not a doctor. She only studied pharmacy. Quoting, I know this would cause huge drama in my family if anyone found out, and then says, you have the opportunity to save your grandpa's life. Do it, and your aunt should be arrested, not the arsehole. WIBTA replies saying, for the first few weeks I totally thought of her as an abuser as well, but as more came out I realized how much control my grandma had. She was the one that made my aunt keep it a secret because she thinks any illness as shameful. My grandma is still to this day fighting us on her meds and trying to refuse treatment. A commenter says to OP, so many things here. Have your grandparents done any advance directives, living will, DNR or POA? You need to talk to your grandpa about it. It'd be wrong to lie to him to take him to the doctor, unless he has been declared by a physician to be mentally incompetent. Then he has a right to make his own decisions about his medical care. You may not agree with it or like it, but that is his right. It's patient autonomy. You can't force a patient to take a medicine or any treatment. I would talk to him about your concerns for his health and see what he says. You need to be neutral though and not accuse his daughter, your aunt, of anything, but also have a serious discussion with your parents as well. It'd be more appropriate for them to address this. Commenter replies saying, my grandpa hasn't made any major decision in years. The only decisions he makes is when and where to walk and what fruits to get when my dad occasionally takes him grocery shopping, as opposed to my dad just bringing them groceries. To my knowledge, there is nothing wrong with him and he is fully capable of making decisions. He just doesn't. He does whatever his children tell him. Commenter says, you are 16, your aunt is 45, so your grandfather is what, 65 plus years old? And you wrote he's even in his right mind, so no mental illness. He has the right to make his own decisions, as any other legal adult, even if they're bad decisions that negatively impact his health, unfortunately. Should he go see a different doctor? Absolutely, and he can do that whenever he chooses. You can accompany him and you don't need another adult to go with you because your grandfather is the adult in this case. He can go to a doctor by himself, or with you, or with whomever he chooses, so there's nothing that prevents you from trying this heist you're planning. If your grandfather is okay with it, that's all you need. It'd be different if he had some condition that makes it impossible to make his own choices. Dementia, for example, and your aunt was his caretaker. Then you could involve the authorities because she is negligent, doesn't take care of the person in her care, your grandpa, properly. But from what you wrote, it doesn't seem to be the case. I guess your problem is that your grandfather doesn't actually want to go to a doctor and you can't force him. You can only try to convince him, beg, etc. Another thing is that even if you take him to a doctor and they prescribe some medicine, you can't make your grandfather take it. OP replied saying he's not making any decisions. I've said this before, he's not been given a choice. Yes, he chooses to not vigorously question his daughter, but that's it. What happens if she will come up to him and say, we're doing this because of that? Sometimes they don't even tell him. OP then made a small update within the same post and says, I feel so helpless. I can't find his insurance card. I think one of the adults has it, and I don't know enough about his medical history to be able to answer the doctor's questions. And as many comments pointed out, even if I take him and get 1 million pills prescribed, they won't be given to him. My aunt's voice message has honestly devastated me. I can't even get myself to finish it. Now, I feel like I have to drop in a comment here, and maybe it's just projection on my part. And I might be completely wrong myself, but I do it every single time no matter what, because I get what some of the comments are saying about autonomy and not forcing it, but I can't lie, this one did hit a bit differently for me. When I was in a kind of similar situation with my dad, he was struggling walking, stopping constantly. This happened very sudden, by the way. And then saying he was fine and didn't need a doctor, was insisting on it. And I just went like, no, fuck that, you're going. I booked the appointment because the family doctor that we've known for years, and took him. And that's when we found out like he had mesothelioma. And there was nothing that could be done to save him in the end. But getting that diagnosis meant he was more comfortable, got proper care, and we actually understood what was happening. So yeah, again, maybe I'm projecting a bit here, but sometimes I think stepping in does matter. Even if it doesn't change the outcome, it can change everything around it. But it was 7.5 months later that OP came in with their update and says, a couple of months ago, I posted asking for advice regarding my grandfather's health. You can read the original post here, and shares the link. It's been almost a year since then, and I finally have an update for you. I didn't end up taking my grandpa to the doctor because I spoke with my mum. She convinced me it was a bad idea and that it would only cause drama. The doctor could prescribe a magical pill to fix all his problems, and if my aunt wasn't on board, he wouldn't take it. However, I did send my dad a hostile message saying that I was going to take my grandpa to the doctor and that he's too ill to just let be. He told me to speak to my aunt. I got mad at him for still relying on her after she tried to heal my grandma's cancer with a diet. I spoke to him again and convinced him to go take my grandpa to a new doctor. The one they were seeing basically just agreed with my aunt and had made zero progress with my grandpa's condition. I booked an appointment with a cardiologist for that week, and I'd like to note that I went through a lot of trouble to get him an appointment so soon. When the day of the appointment came, my dad said my grandpa wasn't feeling up to it. I honestly gave up at that point and realized they were beyond help. A lot of people in the comments on my original post asked what my grandpa wanted, and I explained that he doesn't really speak and only goes along with what his children do or say. Turns out the reason he was so quiet all the time is because he was depressed. As if by miracle, the stupid doctor they love to see diagnosed him with depression last week. Something my mum has been saying for months, and explained that a lot of the physical symptoms were a result of that. The doctor also suggested that my grandpa has issues in one of his glands. They told me what it's called but forgot, as well as some of the infections in his body. My grandpa has finally started on some medication, and my dad finally agreed that the doctor should have caught these things way sooner and has agreed to take my grandpa for further testing elsewhere. P.S. I have no idea how links work on Reddit, so I'm sorry if the link doesn't work. A commenter just says on the back of this, well, bless you for caring about your grandpa so much. If you can manage it, don't give up on him. If your aunt has power of attorney for healthcare for grandpa, you may get foiled again, but now he's being treated for depression, he may start speaking up for himself. Commenter says, you can always call Adult Protective Services. Medical abuse is a thing. And below this, there was a lot of comments mentioning about inheritance, etc. Is the aunt doing this for that particular reason, which is horrifying in itself. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from I Just Like Lunch from the Relationship Advice subreddit, and says a coworker asked me on a date, and now my husband thinks I should report to HR, which I think is weird. Help. Throwaway and TLDR at the bottom. Also, I'm on mobile, so sorry. I started a new job about a month ago. It's my dream job, and I absolutely love it. Without saying too much, my job supports a number of different executive leaders for different productions within my company. I work in media. Since I've started, I've been asked to lunch by several executives as a means to get to know each other and to welcome me to the team. It's been great. Well, anyway, so there's a guy who we'll call G, who also started on the same day as me. He's nice and sits relatively close to me. Our paths rarely cross for work. We're never really in the same meetings or do projects together, but we engage in small talk when we bump into each other in the halls. The other day, he asked if I wanted to go to lunch with him. I said yes because 1, I was planning on going to get something anyway, and 2, I'd gone out to lunch with a number of co-workers and it was fine. I also wear a wedding ring, and in the little new hire bio they send out about each new employees, it included that I was married and have a 2-year-old. I also have pics of my family up on my desk. So we go out to lunch and he asks about my weekend plans, and I say that my husband, daughter and I were going to clean our backyard. That's when he gets a very confused look on his face, and he says if we have an open marriage because he doesn't want to be that guy. I realized what's happened and proceeded to explain that I've been asked out to lunch by a number of folks at work and thought it was just lunch. Super cringeworthy, but he was a good sport about it. He thought my ring was just decorative and that I was a single mum. He said that he didn't see the HR email that introduced me to the company, and we ended up just laughing about it. He was super embarrassed about it and asked me not to tell anyone at work, which I agreed to. So anyway, when I got home I told my husband, and he thought it was weird that I didn't report it to HR. I told him that G didn't break any rules and that I didn't feel like I was harassed or anything. My husband is concerned that he might try to retaliate against me. I highly doubt it, and that it should be documented that I turned him down for a date. My husband also thinks that G went into it knowing I was married and just pretended that he didn't to save face when he realized I wasn't interested in him. He's not buying the decorative wedding ring thing, which I get is a weird excuse, but I have a number of single girlfriends that wear rings on their left fingers, so maybe that's why I didn't think it was that weird. It created this weird tension in my home. I told him that I understand that he feels disrespected, but I didn't believe it was intentional. My husband thinks I'm being naive and passive. My husband's usually a very rational person, but I can't get him to drop this. We haven't really been fighting, but I can also tell he's not happy. For the record, he had no issue with me going out to lunch with other male co-workers, and he even encouraged it. It's just this specific one. Any advice for me? A commenter says to OP it only becomes an HR issue when you turn someone down and they continue to pursue. As long as he drops it, HR should not get involved. Strong says, report what exactly? A guy at your work asked you to lunch, you accepted, he thought you were single, he was embarrassed when he found out otherwise, end scene. I don't even know what ground you would have to report anything. Pretty sure they would just tell you, next time he asks you to lunch, say no. Your husband seems kind of insecure. I bet if he had rationally thought this through, it'd change his view. So it was 8 days after this that OP did update their post and says, first, just want to say thanks to everyone that responded with advice. I got way more feedback than I was expecting, so thanks for that. Before going back to work on Monday, I had a talk with my husband. I told him that while I understand he's upset, it didn't make sense for me to report to HR. My co-worker hadn't broken any company rules by asking me out, and nothing would come of it. I did, however, say that if the co-worker continues to make unwanted advances, that I would absolutely report to HR for harassment. I wrote myself an email, as one kind Redditor suggested, documenting what happened just in case something weird does happen. We decided to put it behind us and continue on. When I got to work on Monday, my boss asked me to come into her office and shuts the door. As it turns out, she was aware of the situation. I guess the guy told his boss because he's worried I might make some sort of complaint to HR. Lol. And his boss ended up talking to my boss. My boss found the whole thing pretty hilarious, referring to my coworker repeatedly as this fucking idiot for not at least confirming that I was single first, and then also asking me if I was okay and if it made me feel uncomfortable, etc. Honestly, it was a good talk. We also have a women's group within our company that she recommended I join, because they talk about handling issues like these in the workplace. She also said that if I wanted to make a report to HR, I could, and that my coworker offered to verify that he was a dummy in a statement if I wanted to make one. She also said I could forward her the email I'd sent to myself, and that if it remains an issue, we have it documented. We're also moving to a new office soon, and she informed me that our departments are going to be in completely different parts of the building, so I won't have to run into him. For now, when I've run into him around, we just do a polite head nod and carry on. For those who said I was an idiot for not catching on sooner, I also wanted to add that I'm not a woman that gets hit on frequently anymore. After having my daughter, my body completely changed, and even though I'm still a young 26-year-old whippersnapper, it's not like I'm constantly turning men down. I'm somewhat shy and was eager to make a friend at my new workplace, and didn't anticipate that his intentions were romantic or sexual. For the folks that thought going out to lunch with male colleagues was inappropriate, I don't really know what to say. My husband has no issues with me going to lunch with male co-workers. It's a completely normal thing to do, and he does it with female colleagues as well, and I have no issue with it. Commenter says, this doesn't change how your husband overreacted. OP replied saying, you are correct. When we talked, he owned up to this and just said it was weird knowing I was working with a guy who's clearly attracted to me. My husband is also doing an unpaid internship, and it's put us in a financial situation we're not used to, so tensions have been high in general. And there were some of the commenters that were blaming OP and said she was going too far with HR. OP responded to those saying, I think it's interesting how in my first post the general response was, you're an idiot for not seeing that he was trying to sleep with you. And in this update, I'm an idiot for doing what exactly? I didn't go to HR and I didn't even bring it up to my boss or his. I didn't do anything but write myself an email. Lol. I literally just went to work and she already knew. Also, I didn't explicitly say in my update post, but I didn't go through with doing an HR report because I didn't see the point. I didn't feel uncomfortable around him or threatened in any way. On my first post, I was looking for advice on how to handle this issue with my husband, as I did not see the purpose in telling HR and wanted advice on how to communicate that to him. I literally did nothing and just went back to work, and dude had snitched on himself and made it a big thing. Not me, for fuck's sake. Absolutely with OP on this one, 100%. All she did initially was go out innocently with a co-worker to try and make a new friend. He tried coming on to her and then, it just absolutely blew up. OP did nothing after that. In fact, OP was a good egg about it and was just like, yeah, it's just like a misunderstanding, and was prepared to move on and just go back to normal, but it all bloody just blew up. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next one comes from the True Off My Chest subreddit from the user Kinda Sorta Losing It, and says, in 5 days, I'm coming clean, and it will probably end my marriage. I've been married to my husband for nearly 17 years, together for 20. I knew that prior to our relationship, he struggled with money issues, and it is a huge trigger for him. So what did I manage to do? Take over the bills a couple of years ago and completely fucked it up. Credit card debt, juggling zero interest cards, all that jazz. My credit has been on a slow and steady decline. I've been trying to keep things out of his name so his credit is okay. I have so much guilt and shame. I was stupid to let it happen. I use shopping, expensive hobbies, and poor financial habits as a way to cover up my anxiety and depression. I lost my mum. We've had a lot of medical debt, travel for my mum and medical reasons, etc. None of those things are excuses for lying to him though. I'm so overwhelmed and guilty. He has no idea. On Friday, we're going to sit down to review finances while our kids are at school, and I'm going to come clean. I have no idea how he's going to react. It might be bad, my divorce, but even best case scenario, he is never going to trust me again, and I don't deserve his trust. He didn't deserve any of this. I've totally betrayed his trust, and it keeps me up at night. Part of me is ready to come clean and be honest. The other, cowardly part of me wants to keep up the charade. I'm finally going to be brave and be honest. I feel sick. A commenter says to OP, the slow crawl into crippling debt is easier to do than some people realize. Corporations restructure and file bankruptcy all the time. There's no shame in it, just learn from it. You can file bankruptcy just for yourself, and if the majority, if not all the debt is in your name, it won't affect your spouse. I'd suggest coming clean after speaking with a bankruptcy attorney. There's a way out of this, and only you have the price to pay, not your spouse. I did this a couple of years ago. My wife's credit was untouched, and mine is already back up to just under 700. Be honest, be strong, do what the attorney says to protect any assets you do not wish to liquidate, and the next thing you know, it'll be a bad memory. Most importantly, do not do it again. Cheddar from the block says, I've been on the other side of this situation. My husband, we aren't married but been together for damn near 16 years, wanted to take over bills, even though I'm great with budgeting and money. Everything was in his name. Every so often, I'd ask about our finances because things started not making sense, or I'd see a bill. He'd hide them. That was past due. It would immediately turn into 0 to 100 tantrum with him. It was a tactic he'd used to shut me down soon as I asked. I would ask nicely to sit down and come up with a plan if I could just see the bills and what is going on. We never had, and he tanked us, including my own credit, because we had each other on both of our cards. I still really haven't forgave him. We lost the ability to buy the house we rented for 15 years that our special needs children grew up in, which was set up for them and their future as adults, having a small apartment upstairs, and had to buy a tiny house with neighbors smashed against us. Hardly a yard, and I'm miserable as fuck. I feel like I lost the person I love deeply losing that home. We're still together, and I handle all the bills now. House is in my name. I'm waiting to win the lottery now to escape what he's done to us. I resent him, lost any attraction or respect for him. I'd walk away if I could. One more comment who says, in a marriage it's always important to be open and honest about finances, just like anything else. You didn't hide this kind of thing from your partner. You've done everything you can to ensure your husband stays out of debt by putting yourself there, but in reality, it's his debt too. If you were to pass, your debt would be his responsibility to pay and vice versa. It's part of your marriage contract. Yes, be honest with him and see what you all can do to fix it. There are options for debt relief, people you can call that can discount the debt you owe. You can discuss working longer hours or finding weekend gigs. Sell things in your home, downsize. If you are too deep, you can file for bankruptcy. It will clear your debt. Your credit score will be reset too, and you'll have to build it from scratch. But whatever happens, it happens together with your husband. As a team, as a partnership, with open communication. The OP does update the post and says, first, thank you to everyone that replied and messaged. I read every single one. I appreciated the hopeful comments and identified with the harsh ones. I'm no angel in this story. So, some extra info. My husband has a very high intensity job and travels frequently. I took over the bills so nothing would get lost in the shuffle when he was away from home and he could focus on what he needs to focus on. Insert joke here, right? I was a complete wreck last week. I barely slept, was physically anxious, and was both absolutely dreading Friday, but also couldn't wait for it to just get here already. Fortunately, my husband was on a work trip and my kids were busy with basketball, friends, theatre, etc. and were barely home. I barely ate and lost like 3 pounds that I've been stuck on. Not recommended for a diet plan. Friday, we planned to each work a half day and then have some lunch and look at our budget for the year. Tax returns were pretty decent and my husband got a good annual bonus, so it made sense to see what was what. He was already talking about throwing some in a CD or investment and I just felt ill. Friday comes and he comes home with an in and out and chocolate shake for me and I just lost it. Full on sobbing, it freaked the hell out of him and took me like 10 minutes to get myself under control. Then I spilled it all. I started with the I love you and I'm sorry and just let fly. That wasn't my plan. I had a whole thing written down to make sure I didn't miss anything and it didn't matter at all. To his incredible credit, he just sat there in shock and listened. Then he definitely underreacted and went directly to we'll fix it together mode. He wanted some time to absorb what I'd said and then wanted to work through our accounts one by one and see what was actually up, and he wanted to do this alone. Then we'd come up with a plan. I let him be and just did some cleaning and laundry. After maybe 45 minutes, I heard him leave the house with a door slam. I wasn't about to chase him down after he asked for space to process. I did look at the computer and it was a list of all of our outstanding balances. To everyone guessing figures, here you go. I assumed it'd be 60k based on my rough math, but I had forgotten a couple I had on autopay. $96,000 in debt that he had no idea about. He messaged me a while later that he was going to stay by his mum for the night and he'd be back to pack a bag, and that he would rather not talk yet. I respected that and made myself scarce. He came home the next day and we manufactured some time alone to talk by sending the kids out to run errands. The oldest can drive and loves any excuse. The heart to heart was basically this. I fucked up royally here, but he shouldn't have checked out completely and let it get to this point. He's going to take over our finances. We're going to do a home equity line of credit or second mortgage for all the recurring stuff and buckle down hard. We will review everything together at least twice a month. We'll do marriage counseling together. I agreed to absolutely every term and condition. I honestly thought he wasn't going to come back. Things are chilly at the best right now, and I'm so desperately sorry and sick over the hurt I caused. At the same time, there is a deep sense of relief that whatever happens, I'm no longer lying about it and everything is out in the open. Maybe he'll decide that he can't move on, but I'm going to own whatever happens. A commenter asked this and I'm glad they did because I was feeling the same. They said, OP, you also probably should look into therapy or a shopping addiction group. Almost 100 grand in debt is like gambling addiction levels of having a problem. Good luck though. Hope you two work it out and find a way forward. You might consider picking up some additional income to work down the debt. Another commenter says, no way to tell if your marriage will survive this, but if you're coming clean, that burden was transferred to him. How much lighter you feel is because the weight is now on him. Don't forget that. If I were you, I'd run out and get any additional job I can, even a minimum wage job, and contribute to paying it back. He may not want you to, but offer and make a real effort. When you say expensive hobbies, I hope you don't mean gambling. I'd be completely unforgiving if this was spent on gambling, but otherwise it's disappointing but not unforgivable in my mind. People do stupid shit all the time, but your actions have put your whole family behind for the next X years. I go out of my way to never eat out and downgrade all necessities. Like if you're used to La Prairie moisturizer, use fucking Neutrogena. Clip coupons when grocery shopping and tighten up everything and waste nothing. That's your penance. He seems to love you, and if he sees all this for the next year or few years, I'm sure he'll find it in his heart to forgive you. You probably develop a few good habits too. You have to earn that forgiveness before you can earn trust back, though I'd never expect to earn trust around finances back in this lifetime. I'm glad you told him the truth. Bloody hell, 96 grand. What about you guys on this one? Is that something you'd be able to forgive if that was your partner? Would you be able to move past that? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. Truly is absolutely amazing. And hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care and much love.